So St. Paul's, what are you doing New Year's Eve? Coming to church. Yes. Yes. Love it. It's a perfect place to be on New Year's Eve, don't you think? Yes. Because New Year's Eve is the time that we think about the future. And so it's good for us to be here today all together, because I think it's important to ask ourselves the question, have you ever wondered about what leads you? What is it that leads you? What is it that guides you? I mean, we're all led by something, aren't we? We're influenced, we're guided, either internal or external. We're taken here, from here to there, by what? For some of us, we're led by marketing and advertising. Buy this, buy that, society tells us. For some of us, we're led by trusted friends who always have the right thing to say and the perfect guidance. For some of us, we're led by the next rung on the professional ladder. And for some of us, we're led by old family stories and narratives, voices that may not be the most helpful. And for some of us, we're led by something that tells us that we've got to be bigger and better and best. You've probably seen it in all of the newspapers over the last week, these lists, right? The best of, the things, the top 25 things, the top 50 things that have been guiding us for the past 52 weeks. Podcasts, Netflix shows, movies, books, Beyonce, Taylor Swift. But today, we hear from the Gospel of Matthew. That's where I want to shine the spotlight a little bit today. We have a few examples of what it looks like to be led, to be guided. But first of all, it's church, y'all. We got to talk about some drama, because that's what happens, right? And just think about it, a week ago, last week, today, we all gathered here. We had candles. We were singing Silent Night, Holy Night. All is calm. All is bright. Well, it doesn't take long for the calm to turn to chaos. And his name is Herod the Great. In the time of King Herod, our introduction tells us today, Herod was a leader. Herod was a leader when Jesus was born. One scholar says that Herod was well known in the ancient world for both his paranoia and his brutality. He had one of his wives and several of his sons murdered because he thought they were plotting against him. Now, Herod was kind of one of the sub-rulers that ruled underneath Caesar Augustus. And Caesar Augustus is rumored to have said that it was safer to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. So, if you can imagine a leader that is prone to paranoia and temper tantrums, if you can imagine a leader that is obsessed with power so much so that they want to destroy an entire demographic, you can imagine Herod. When Herod was on the warpath, the whole region felt it. He did not want anyone to outshine him, so he plotted to have all baby boys killed. And this, by the way, is Matthew's way of connecting Jesus to Moses, the great liberator. So, what led Herod? Well, it says it right there in Scripture. Fear. Fear of not being the greatest and the most powerful. What guides Herod? his ego. But we have another example of being led, the Magi. Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews?" Herod calls these leaders to find the baby Jesus. "Go and find him," Herod instructs, "so that I may also pay him homage." But you know good and well, just like I know good and well, that Herod has no intention of paying homage to the good Lord baby Jesus. As we've said, Herod wants to destroy, eradicate the threat. And so these wise people, we don't really know if there are three of them, notice. There are three gifts. They strike out. And what leads them? A star. A star. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of like these guys. They did not put 815 East Bethlehem Street into their GPS. And that strange voice did not say, "At the end of the temple, turn right." They didn't connect to technology. They didn't connect to satellites. They truly looked to the heavens. And they tuned into their own intuition. And they trusted that they would be led to an experience, a place, the place that God wanted them to go. What's even more interesting about these Magi is that they were decidedly and visibly not from around here. The Magi were most likely astrologers, perhaps Zoroastrian priests from Persia, and they certainly are Gentiles, and they definitely don't know Scripture. And yet this is the group that is called to find Jesus. An example that the birth of Jesus, the gravitational pull of Jesus, guides them more deeply into the fullness of creation. Could something holy be leading these Magi, something they don't even know about? How do we tap into that gravitational pull? How do you and I get caught up in the guiding of Jesus? How do we get in touch with what guides us? Well, I like to think that when we come to church every single Sunday, we gather to remind ourselves that our egos are not very reliable leaders. Sure, we may have the occasional temper tantrum. We may get scared that life just isn't going the way we wanted. We may get scared that other people are going to take our toys. There are real fears out there. Which is why when we gather here, when we come here, we bring all of those things and we leave them at the manger, which is ultimately a place of vulnerability and trust. I also like to think that when we gather here in church, we come to be reminded that we too are guided by something holy. We're led by candles, and we're led by beauty and flowers and quiet and chant. We're led by ancient creeds and songs and responses that have been guiding us for centuries. We're led by bread and wine. We're led by kneeling and standing in postures of confession. We're led by the passing of peace. "I want for you peace," we say to each other. We're led by serving food and helping pay electricity bills. We're led by an ancient cry for justice and equality. We're led by a bigger vision of who God is, a bigger vision of who we are, a bigger vision of who we might become. There's a short opera called Amal and the Night Visitors, and it was written by Giancarlo Menotti, and it debuted in 1951. It tells the story of the Magi who are traveling, looking for the child, and they stop off at the home of a poor mother and son, and the son's name is Amal. From birth, Amal has walked with a crutch. And the three men enter and begin to show Amal and his mother their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And the Magi ask, "Have you seen the child?" And then they begin to describe the child. And this is what he looks like. Have you seen a child the color of wheat, the color of dawn? His eyes are mild, his hands are those of a king. As king he was born. Incense, myrrh, and gold we bring to his side, and the eastern star is our guide. Have you seen a child the color of earth, the color of thorn? His eyes are sad, his hands are those of the poor. As poor he was born. Incense, myrrh, and gold we bring to his side, and the eastern star is our guide. The child we seek holds the seas and the winds on his palm. Before him, the eagle is gentle and the lion is meek. Choirs of angels hover over his roof and sing him to sleep. He's warmed by breath. He's fed by mother who is both virgin and queen. Incense, myrrh, and gold we bring to his side, and the eastern star is our guide. Have you seen the child? You see, even as an infant, this child, Jesus, is too big for Herod. Just too big. But for the Magi, Jesus is big and beautiful and diverse. And only something like a star can lead them to something this expansive and extraordinary. In the story, ultimately, Amal is healed. And his mother grants him permission to hop on the back of a camel and ride with the Magi, and to those three gifts add his own crutch. Now is a time of leading, St. Paul's, of being led, of being guided. Tonight we'll count down the year. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Then what? Same old, or something different? Would you rather sit on a camel's back with a wandering magician, guided by the brightness of a star? Or would you rather sit at the center of power, led by ego and fear? What do you seek? And what is guiding you there? Have you seen a child the color of earth, the color of thorn? His eyes are sad, his hands are those of the poor. As poor he was born. All of our humble gifts we bring to his side. And by the guiding of a star, we find him.